Many things have happened since Betty's travel to the other Maestro's world, as she remembers the symbiote codex killing him. She looks over to see the rest of the Avengers training, and she goes down to join. She looks at her phone to check up with Phil Coulson as she gets updates about Alice and is relieved. Ricky finishes her training session as she decides to talk to Betty. Betty puts her phone away quickly as she tells Ricky she's going on vacation because Coulson informed her of an incident in Hawaii, which was a lie. But Ricky believes her. As she walks back, Betty gets into the Quinjet and she flies off to the SHIELD HQ. Ricky, Blue Marvel, Falcon, Stingray, Dr. Voodoo, Silk, Tigra, Iron Patriot, and Thor Girl finish up hours later as they get a reading of unknown energy. They look through a satellite camera as they see a ship land in Central Park. This gets Ricky's attention as she tells the other Avengers to get to Central Park immediately. At Central Park, the Inhumans and Eternals look around them to see a prospering planet. Inferno looks around to see a planet that he hardly remembers. Icarus tells the others that they must find the Codex. This leaves Inferno confused as Icarus explains that the xenophages are attracted to the Codex as they can help Null escape from his prison. Just then, the Eternals and Inhumans look to see a Quinjet land next to them as they see the Avengers. The group are confused as they see Captain America ask who they are and why they are there. At the SHIELD HQ, Betty arrives as she gives Alice a hug and looks at Director Phil Coulson. Coulson says that they're ready to head over there, and Betty nods. Suddenly, multiple SHIELD raiders detect the presence of the Inhumans, and this causes a few troops to fly out in Quinjets to find the source of it. Betty is worried as she stays beside Alice to protect her. Never in her life has she felt fear like this since the Ultron Revolution. Not just out of fear of Alice being revealed to the public, but the thought of anyone hurting her. In the remnants of Adelan on the moon, the Void Knight looks around to see the destruction all around her, and looks to one xenophage and tells them to travel to Earth and find the Codex. The xenophage nods and jumps into the sky and begins to travel to Earth. She looks around and hears her master say to look for the sword. She begins to fly to the destroyed remnants of Omnipotent City and sees the shattered Necrosword on the ground. She picks it up and flies away. Back in Central Park, citizens begin to run away as SHIELD Quinjets fly towards the area. The two sides look at each other with confusion and concern. Ricky asks again who they are, and Inferno explains who he and his people are. This leaves Stingray confused and semi-angry, as he knows that the Inhumans left Earth to fight for themselves after they lost Black Bolt and Medusa. Inferno says they needed to happen in order to save their own people. Silk asks why they are here, and Athena says that they are on a mission and they cannot stop them. She tries to walk away from them, but Blue Marvel stands in her way and tells her not before they tell them why they are here and what their mission is. Athena tries to forge a hammer and smacks Adam in the face, which sends him flying. Adam flies back, but he regathers himself. The Avengers are on their guard as Ember tries to defuse the situation. Icarus says they don't have time for this and tries to fly away, but Adam grabs him by the leg, holding him back. Athena forges a sword, and Thorgirl tackles her as the rest of the Inhumans and Avengers fight each other. Tigra manages to slash Nerys and Iso in the back, saying that they picked the wrong city to fight them. Ricky throws her shield, and Cersei uses her powers to block the attack and says that they are not looking for a fight. In the background of the fight, Ember keeps Kamala away from the fight, but sees Silk swing to the ground. Ember uses her powers to form a blaster, to which Silk looks impressed as she recognizes it from a video game. Ember explains that they have no idea what's coming. Silk then asks to explain what is happening, until by accident Kamala's powers emerge and form a hard-to-light construct that knocks back Silk. Ember is both happy and scared that Kamala's powers have just now developed. Falcon flies around the area as she shoots sharp projectiles at him, as Stingray attempts to hit Iso, but she uses her powers, which begins to slowly crush Stingray's suit. Dr. Voodoo casts a spell that makes Iso lose her balance, but he gets hit from behind by an energy projectile by Nahiris. Cersei moves around from Tigra's slashes and uses her abilities of transmutation to slow her down. Inferno flies around Ricky, shooting fire beams at her as she tries to tell the team to keep it together and find a weakness within them. Dr. Voodoo casts a spell that holds Nerys in place. He then enters her mind and sees the reason why they arrived on Earth. He sees the xenophages destroying Earth and the name of Null. This knocks him back, and he gets tackled from behind by Icarus, who tells Cersei to use the device Phastos gave her. Cersei nods her head and uses her powers to make the ground sand to deal with Tigra. She pulls out a small device. She presses it, and a small light appears out of it. It flies into the air. Icarus punches Blue Marvel in the face multiple times, then flies into the air to follow the light. Jericho goes to Ricky and Inferno goes to Ricky and tells her that they need to stop fighting them. Ricky's confused, and Inferno begins to explain everything. At the shield base, Betty looks at the consoles to see the battle, and just then alarms go off to see Icarus flying towards them. She goes to grab Alice and turns into Red She-Hulk. Icarus crashes through the base and pushes through the shield agents. He meets Betty and Alice in the hallway and sees the light shine right over Betty. Icarus tells Betty to give up the Codex. This leaves Betty confused, but remembers what the Maestro variant she fought said about the Codex. Betty forms a sword and tells Alice to run. She does this as Betty charges toward Icarus. The two fight to destroy half the base. Icarus begins to have another anxiety attack as he remembers what happened on Titan and what happened on Adelan. He screams in the air and pins Betty to the ground. He looks around and sees Alice. He tells Betty that if she cares for the girl, she'll give up the Codex. Icarus flies to Alice and takes her away. Betty screams in the air as she tries to chase after him. Coulson stops her as she screams in the air. Betty makes her way to Central Park and sees the two teams. She looks to Inferno and grabs him in the air and asks him where Icarus went. Inferno is confused and asks why she acts, and she begins to squeeze his neck and screams that Icarus took her daughter. The Avengers look confused and shocked to what they just heard. Betty's eyes begin losing her irises as they turn bright yellow, squeezing Inferno tighter. She asks one more time where Alice went, as she feels her rage boiling unlike anything before. Inferno tries to tell her he doesn't know, but Betty slams him into a stone pillar, knocking him out. Ricky tries to ask Betty about what they just heard, but Betty jumps at a faraway distance to find Icarus, not saying a word. On the SHIELD helicarrier, Ricky asks Coulson what he knows about Betty's daughter. Coulson reveals that she wanted to keep Alice off the books because of how Bruce Banner became the monster Maestro. Stingray says that Betty never became that angry before as he looks to Inferno and the rest of the Inhumans. Dr. Voodoo calls to everyone and shows them what he saw in Nereus's mind, and they all look in horror as they see the power Null has with him. Adam asks why Null needs the Codex, and Cersei explains that the Codex will allow him to escape his prison, and if he does, it will be the death of everything in the universe. Stingray begins to try to locate Betty, but is unable to. Coulson then suggests that they try to triangulate Icarus's location due to him having otherworldly energies within him. With the help of Cersei, Tony is able to triangulate Icarus, and Stingray sends a message to Betty. However, he is unsure if she'll answer them. In an abandoned building in Canada, Icarus holds Alice hostage as he paces back and forth. Alice asks why he is here, and as he tries to explain that he's saving the universe. Just then, he feels a shake as he sees multiple Quinjets, with the Avengers, Inhumans, and Eternals arriving. Cersei begs Icarus to let Alice go, but Icarus refuses as he needs to get the Codex. Just then, Red She-Hulk launches from a mountain and screams with anger as she tackles Icarus to the ground, telling him to give back her daughter. Icarus smiles as he shoots Betty in the face with his laser vision. This doesn't faze Betty as her hands begin burning with fire. She smashes his head into the ground and throws him into the air. Stingray tries to reason with her, but the anger in her has full control. Stingray tells the others to keep Betty within the premises as he makes his way to Alice. He frees her and tells her that he needs her help. Betty throws flaming trees at Icarus, which he evades some of them. The eye blasts hit her, but they make her even more angry, which then begins to emit flames all across her body, which begin to burn the forest around them. After pinning him down, Betty yells at Icarus, asking where her daughter is. Just then, Alice speaks to her, while Betty hears and looks at her daughter standing next to Stingray. Betty begins to calm down as the flames slowly vanish. She makes her way to her daughter, and everything seems at peace until a loud noise is heard from the sky. Near the building, the group look above them, with Inferno looking with fear as he sees a xenophage coming toward them. Blue Marvel asks if that thing works for Null. Inferno nods, and that's all Adam needs to hear, as he and Thorgirl fly towards the xenophage to attempt to fight it. The xenophage heals from the initial attacks and sends its tendrils to Adam and Tareen, which sends them flying back to the ground. The Avengers and Inhumans attempt to take down the xenophage, but a continuous healing factor keeps it from dying. Betty and Stingray do what they can to keep Alice safe, but Icarus follows from behind. He looks to see his friends fighting the xenophage and apologizes for what he did to Betty. He then flies and tackles the xenophage, and it begins to stab him multiple times. He groans in pain as he looks at Athena and Circe, telling them to not let this planet fall like Titan. He flies away with the xenophage and right into the sun, killing both him and the xenophage. A couple days pass as the Inhumans and Eternals are welcomed to new homes in a new base made by S.H.I.E.L.D. Betty properly introduces Alice to the Avengers and apologizes for not telling them about her. The group understands why she did it and are glad to have her. Inferno asks what they will do now, and Ricky says that Greer went to speak to Eddie about Null and his impending arrival, that she must inform everyone they can, as when Null arrives, and he will, it will be the fight of their lives. On the planet Clintar, the Void Knight arrives and apologizes to her master, saying that the xenophage failed to retrieve the Codex. Her master says not to worry, as thanks to the attack on Titan, he was able to retrieve one Codex. He rises from his chair as Clintar begins to shift, freeing him from his prison. He puts his hand out, and Void Knight gives the broken pieces of the Necrosword to him. He closes his eyes, and the sword begins to become one again. He smiles as he waves his sword. Null is coming.